Good morning. Welcome to Unitarian Universalist Church West, located in the Milwaukee area, western suburb of Brookfield, Wisconsin. Also, welcome to all of you joining us virtually. We are so glad you are here. My name is Kathy White, and I serve on UUCW's Board of Trustees. I am a white, cisgender woman who prefers dressing casually, identifies as a lesbian, embraces being a mother and a grandmother, and loves the woman I married with all my heart. My pronouns are she and her. Whatever your age or color, whoever your ancestors were, whatever your gender identity, whatever your chosen beliefs, you are truly welcome here. The following words are taken from the UUA website. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers. We are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, and spirituality, but aligned in our desire to make a difference for the good. We have a track record of standing on the side of love, justice, and peace. We have radical roots and a history as self-motivated spiritual people. We think for ourselves and recognize that life experience influences our beliefs more than anything. We need not think alike to love alike. We are people of many beliefs and backgrounds. People with a religious background, people with none, people who believe in a God, and people who don't, and people who let the mystery be. We are Unitarian Universalist and Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, humanist, Jewish, Muslim, pagan, atheist and agnostic, believers in God, and more. On the forefront of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender and queer inclusion for more than 40 years, we are people of all sexual orientations and gender identities. We seek to welcome you, your whole self, with all your truths and your doubts, your worries, and your hopes. Join us on this extraordinary adventure of faith. And I've been asked to highlight a couple things, which you could certainly read for yourselves, but I will mention them on the list of announcements included today with the order of service. Item 3, the community room is abuzz today. There's the anti-racism transformation team would like all of us to contribute words or drawings for the 6 words on display so that they can create a word cloud and use our ideas next Sunday in their service. The words are diversity, equity, inclusion, mission, anti-racism, identity. Or you can email your response to antiracism@uucw.org. And item 5, also in the community room, please join folks for the Get Out the Vote postcard writing event as we team with the Wisconsin UU State Action Network, WUSON, to write 200 postcards to local residents.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning. I'm Deb Stevens. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a member of the worship ministry team. Our team puts together services for when Rev Jill is out of the pulpit. I'd like to introduce today's speaker. Chaplain Mark Richards and his wife, Christina, came to Door County, Wisconsin in 2016 to serve as a hospice chaplain. After spending 25 years living outside Boston, the couple found the tempo and temper in the Midwest much to their liking. Mark was ordained by the First Parish in Concord, Massachusetts, UU, in 2018. In 2020, Mark took on the leadership of the Wisconsin UU State Action Network. Mark's ministry is focused on building communities where each unique expression of God's Spirit can live authentically. Welcome, Chaplain Mark. Today's call to worship is by Reverend Sherry Woodbury. Here we are in our circle again, a circle of vision and reflection, a forum for deciding and empowering. Here we are at the base of another bridge, another space spanning the shores of today and tomorrow, beckoning us to cross the chasm one day at a time. Here we are gathered again at the cusp of the future, at the boundary that holds community together. We are here in a circle of love and trust, brought to this moment by a series of choices and promises, by hope and gratitude, by our own shadows, faced and befriended. With a servant's heart, with a leader's listening, with a parent's love, truer than all our inner trembling, let us model the health we seek for all and lean into community. Somewhere out there, all we dream is possible. Somewhere in here, we are sowing the seeds. Please rise in body or spirit for our congregational song, number 1012, When I Am Frightened.
Will you
This morning's chalice lighting is by Craig Rowland. I breathe in the warmth of this light, its glow filling the spaces where fear and doubt reside. I breathe out the tension I carry. I release what no longer serves me. I breathe in the strength of our community, a sanctuary of diverse voices and shared purpose. I breathe out the urge to go it alone. I embrace the power of togetherness. I breathe in the courage to speak truth, even when it trembles on my lips. I breathe out the silence that holds me back. I make space for honesty and justice. I breathe in the hope of transformation, knowing we are here to build and to heal. I breathe out despair, trusting that change is born in small acts of love. As we light this chalice, may each breath remind us of the sacred rhythm of life, the pulse of creation, and the power we hold to shape the world around us. We enter now a time for sharing of joys and sorrows that touch our individual lives, our way we express through ritual the many ways that we touch and are touched by each other. In a moment, you'll be invited to come to the mic to share your joy or concern. If you have something you'd rather not share aloud, you can use the QR code in the order of service or the share side of the slip that was given to you inside of your hymnal. If you need something to write with, just raise your hand. For those of you at home or for anyone at other times during the week, you can use the link in our weekly e-news to let us know what's going on in your lives and in your heart. Remember that what you share today is only for the ears of those gathered now. It will not be in the posted video of the service or shared in our e-news. So now come to the mic to speak or raise your hand, and an usher will provide a mic to you. A candle will be lit, and after each sharing, I invite you all to respond with me, "We hold you in love." You may form a line to the side. Please come. And one last candle for those joys and concerns not shared, but held deep in our hearts. We hold you in love. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
We are Good morning. So I was telling Deb I forgot to print off this reading, so I had to look it up. So my name is Mark Richards. My pronouns are he and him. I am an overweight man with white hair on the side of my head and white skin on top. I wear glasses and I am clean shaven. These are the words of Rabindranath Tagore. The divine principle of unity has ever been that of an inner relationship. This is revealed in some of its earliest stages in the evolution of multicellular life on the planet. The most perfect inward expression has been attained by humans in our own bodies. But what is most important of all is the fact that we have also attained the realization in a more subtle body outside our physical system. We miss ourselves when we are isolated. We find our own larger and truer self in our wide human relationship. Our multicellular body is born and it dies. Our multi-personal humanity is immortal. In this ideal of unity, we realize the eternal in our lives and the boundlessness of our love. The unity comes not a mere subjective idea, but an energizing truth. Whatever name may be given to it and whatever form it symbolizes, the consciousness of this unity is spiritual, and our effort to be true to it is our religion. It ever waits to be revealed in our history in a more and more perfect illumination. The words of Rabindranath Tagore. Within the modern framework of community development practices, trust operates as a foundational element that supports effective collaborative efforts alongside active participation while promoting general societal well-being. Trust transcends abstract conceptualization to become a concrete asset which possesses the power to affect community interaction dynamics profoundly. In the scholarly work of Todd Gilmer regarding urban initiatives, he delineates trust-building elements into three distinct thematic categories, which include relationship building, embodiment of trustworthiness, and shared decision-making. The elements within these components highlight an essential demand for communal entities to implement strategic methodologies that place trust building at the forefront as a means to achieve empowerment and equity. There's more along those lines, but it's just getting a little bit dense, don't you think? The point of all of that is that the establishment of a trust-based community. Cultures stand as critical necessity for the developing robust environments. The myriad connections among different trust dimensions highlights its complex nature, which necessitates those efforts to enhance community relationships, address every facet of, and like that. The whole point of that is that you trust me to bring to you an authentic message. All of those words were written by an AI essay writer. The foundation of our relationship is trust. It's the most valuable commodity that we own. And when you give me your trust, we must have a relationship that's built on truth. So those words were written by an AI essay writer. AI essay, okay. I gave it a topic and a sample of my writing, and it returned these words, referencing the 3 academic papers. So I'm using this tool. I'm trusting that it's functioning with no other purpose than to put 500 words together in response to my query. But why did it choose these 3 references and not some others? The exercise is less about what AI had to say and more an illustration of how technology is shifting how we trust. I've not read the references. I've not done research to see if there are better references, but there are 2 disturbing things that came up. The footnote for the article by Todd Gilmer. So in the footnote that the AI essay writer put out, it was referred to as Gilmer and Todd. In fact, it had 7 authors, and Todd Gilmer was the last of those 7. Also, this AI essay application that I was using has a tool for teachers, so you can take a student's work and plug it into the tool, and it will tell you whether it was written by AI or by a human. So I plugged those words into the tool, and it came back that it was written by a human. So all you teachers out there, beware. Our understanding of what is true is beginning to disintegrate. We rely on search engines, algorithms, and a host of other tools to gather information in order to make sound decisions. There's just too much information for us to test the validity of all of it. Andrew Tillotson, if you have been following the USAN newsletters, Andrew had just come on board to help us put together a social media strategy. And he offered these 3 steps in evaluating information you get from the internet. One is evaluate why you are seeing it. There are algorithms out there that pay attention to what you look at and how long you look at it. And if you look at it long enough, you'll see more of it. If you click on it, that's about all you'll see. I made this mistake one day of being curious about one of these right-wing ads that came up on my Facebook feed, and now all I get are offers to sell me things that will get me through the Holocaust. Once you have evaluated why you're seeing it, evaluate how it makes you feel. And then reflect on who benefits from you seeing this. And that will help you come to some conclusion as to the value of that information in whatever it is that you're doing. But there's no point in using the internet if we cannot trust most of what we see. And that trust must be constantly evaluated and understood. My rule of thumb is simple enough. If it doesn't seem reasonable, it probably isn't. But my evaluation is based on 35 years of watching the internet grow into what it is, and the all-pervasive presence that it's become. To trust deeply enough to form a healthy community, trust must be embedded in relationship. Tagore wrote, "Relationship is the fundamental truth of this world of appearance." This world that we see is the world of appearance. And we must have relationship in order to understand its fundamental truth. Society functions in truth. If I can't believe that the plumber will arrive near the time agreed upon, I can't plan the rest of my day. If I can't believe that the police officer is here to ensure public safety, I cannot feel protected in my own town. If I cannot believe my religious leader serves only to bring our community together with the power of love, I cannot engage fully in the actions of my church. Father Richard Rohr is a Franciscan friar. He founded the Center for Contemplation and Action in New Mexico. He lectures on mysticism and non-dualistic thinking in Christianity. He describes our relationships in community as a set of nested stories, like the Russian matryoshka dolls. that are nested inside each other. The dolls fit inside and they build up to the final story. So the first story in our community here is the story of me. That's my first story. It's how I perceive myself in body, mind, and spirit. It's formed by my experience living as I understand it to affect me. For instance, a theme that runs through my life is persistence. When I'm faced with failure in something that is important to me, I will push on, I will find a different path, and I will adapt as I need to, but I will persist until the objective is achieved. The story of me is enclosed in the story of us. Those with whom we share space, we share work, we share meaning, we share stories. We define our group by common values, common goals, common rituals. We enjoy inherent trust in our story because we share common experiences and common goals. We have a common process for making decisions. We pass our wisdom to future generations through common stories. Unitarian Universalism is one story of us. Many of us share the experience of coming to UU movement after suffering a disappointment with some other religion. The United States of America is another story of us. In order to fully understand the story of us, we must then discover the story of them. As we more fully develop the story of us, we must find that there are others who are not us. And they may have different experiences, live by different values, seek different goals. They may pass their wisdom to the generations through different stories. The story of us very much includes how we relate to the story of them. Historically, we first considered them to be a threat. They may want to impose their stories on us. They may want to take our stuff and pollute our blood. Or they may need to be shown the truth so they can assimilate into us. Nick Tilson is a young adult of the Oglala Lakota tribe who lives on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. He describes his community as one of the poorest in the world. He attributed this to his people having values imposed upon them by others. A few years ago, he gathered a group of young Oglala, and they decided to make their own path. They learned the traditional ways of the Lakota people and incorporated them into designing physical communities, which relied on cycles of nature, allowing them to be self-sustaining. They sought wisdom from their elders. One 98-year-old grandmother, when asked what she would like to see in a housing community, she said she had never been asked by anyone what she wanted. To achieve this remarkable success, Mr. Tilson's group embraced the value of resilience, the power to recover from illness, adversity, or depression, the power to bend and stretch. The American story of resilience has more to do with overcoming natural disasters than it does recovering from the suppression of our story. As Christian European culture came to dominate this continent, we relied on our faith that we had the only truth, the only way to measure a useful life, the only values and rituals that could bring meaning to any life. We belittled the other. And if they showed us a different way to thrive in our living, we suppressed them with violence. Since World War II, we've begun to realize the limits of insisting on Christian European dominance. With the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, the LGBTQ movement of the 70s and 80s, changing attitudes towards sex and race, we have begun to open ourselves to the possibility that the other story has something to offer our lives. But concurrent with this progress has been a diametric movement that seeks to sustain the Christian European dominance. A movement that promotes a single class that is qualified to rule. In 1956, the year after Brown versus Board of Education, the University of Virginia charged a young economics professor to develop a way for Virginia to keep its segregated school system. That professor was Dr. James Buchanan. He went on to develop an entire socioeconomic school of thought known as the Mount Pelerin Society. It made him a valuable advisor to President Ronald Reagan, an advocate for supply-side economics, and it won him a Nobel Prize. The dominant thesis of this school, modern affluent societies, has allowed a rise of a class of parasites. Freeloaders who take from the government without adding value. Using the focused story of an economic community, value is only measured by financial output. In a more robust story, value can take on many more dimensions. The Buchanan movement has led us to where we are now. Although the story of us seems to be drifting back to the story of Christian Europeans, the dominant story is devolving back to the story of me. In 2014 on Fox News, our current president said, "When the economy crashes, when the country goes to total hell and everything is a disaster, then you have riots to go back to where we used to be, when we were great." When the economy crashes. Leaders act only to preserve their own interests, without consideration for the needs of those who they lead, even one so strictly defined by these historic parameters. If you take from the government, you are taking from me. It's a philosophy that's destined to end in anarchy, chaos, and perhaps global destruction. To elevate our civilization above our story, we are called to raise our understanding to the level of the story. We are called to see all stories, appreciate all lived experience, to form communities in which each living spirit can thrive. We must connect with each living story we face. We are not just human stories. The forest communities have a story. The mountains, the streams, the lakes, and the ocean, they all have stories. Every form of life lives in community, forming relationships with all other forms of life. It is the human story that has elevated itself above the other stories, losing the relationships that have brought about its own manifestation. Even when we overcome the stories of other humans, we are failing to embrace the stories of other living systems. Carol Miss wrote in her book, The Anatomy of a Spirit, "I remember clearly the professor who introduced me to Buddhism and Hindu thought. As a final exam, she took all 5 of us students to a remote weekend retreat facility and issued the rules. No speaking allowed, no clocks, no wristwatches. During the night, she would awaken a student, ask the student to assume a yogic position, and ask the question, how does a Christian speak about the nature of God? How does a Buddhist speak about the nature of reality? What is the truth of eternal life? What are the purposes of this life?" The questions were deep and penetrating. It wasn't the quality of our responses she was evaluating, rather, it was our attachment to one form of truth over another. If she sensed that we were attached to one form, we had failed to learn the lesson of her class. All truth is the same at the level of truth itself. That it becomes enculturated is an illusion. For her, this was the essence of what it means to become conscious, to seek truth that is detached from its social and cultural form. Tagore tells us that science seeks to decouple the ultimate truth from human experience, that truth writ large exists outside the realm of human experience and will exist regardless of whether a human being ever comes to know it. Einstein showed us that the truth that one observes is dependent upon the point of observation. And Heisenberg showed us that the observer actually changes the truth simply by observing it. The presumption that truth exists outside of its observation is kind of like the tree falling in the woods. All of this is to say that we cannot know the story without knowing the relationships that compose the story. And if we insist on holding on to our story, we will miss the opportunity to grow into a complete, complex, and compassionate global community. This is why I believe that Unitarian Universalism offers great power to shift today's world. You see, our story is a faith that gathers without a creed. By not adhering to an official statement of belief, we open our community to all of those who think freely. We may choose to embrace Gilmer's 3 attributes of building trust in community building, relationship building, embodiment of trustworthiness, and shared decision-making. We may find them in the values that we share of justice, equity, pluralism, transformation, interdependence, and generosity. In a not entirely arbitrary arrangement of values to attribute, I might regard equity and interdependence as related to relationship building. Trustworthiness might be expressed by equity and pluralism, and shared decision-making may well include transformation and generosity. I invite you to sort this out your own way. I limited myself to assigning 2 values to each of the attributes. You may use a different symmetry or asymmetry, and the values may shift according to the community you're trying to build. Of course, all of this rests on our core value of love, the power that binds us together. And from empirical data I gathered just this week from the President's speech to Congress, truth is a vital component of love. In the late 1900s, I was living in Boston, and I looking to find some social action work to engage in. I learned about the UU Urban Ministry offering social enrichment to the poor of the city and spiritual consciousness to the privileged of the suburbs by providing a place for them to meet and work. The urban ministry is a direct descendant of the beneficent fraternity of congregations, which was an outcrop of the ministry of Reverend Joseph Tuckerman. As the churches of Boston were loath to allow the poorest of their neighbors into their sanctuaries, Reverend Tuckerman went out into their neighborhoods to meet their needs, to set up chapels so that the poorest of Boston had a place to worship and refuge. Largely because of Reverend Tuckerman's work, Boston at one time claimed over 70 Unitarian churches. It's down to about half a dozen now. Unitarian Universalism has a long history of reaching out to others, but providing aid to the marginalized is not the same as seeking the world from their perspective. When I was doing my chaplain residency in Kansas City, I spent some time working with a group that provided aid for the homeless. We went out in trucks 3 times a week with a hot meal, personal hygiene products, clothing, some shelter items. We met the people in designated places, and we got to know them. And for a project, I interviewed one man to learn his story. We met in the neat camp he shared with a friend and a couple of women in the woods behind a shopping center. Their shelter consisted of wood frames covered with plastic tarps. They had built a tool shed and a gazebo for sitting out at night. The yard had gravel laid down to hold down the mud. He shared his story of why he had dropped out of our story. He had worked for the railroad and had witnessed two very traumatic incidents. The first was when a car full of young girls tried to beat the train to a crossing and failed. He described the scene in some pretty gruesome detail. The second was when he sat with a friend as he died pinned between two railroad cars. My friend tried to get disability help from the state of Kansas, but was denied. It was his story, and there was little room for it in the story of that community. The point of all this is that we have to do more than just provide material help to those who live on the margins of our communities. We have to listen to the stories they live and understand how they are important and impacted by our story. At some point in time, they were included in our story, and then they weren't. They couldn't keep up, or we wouldn't understand, and they lost the trust that is needed for a community to be whole. What we can do as Unitarian Universalists is to be a steadfast source of truth for the communities that we live in. In this day, that simply means holding on to the facts of our lives, letting those facts out of the box, digging them up out of the hole. Verify sources, validate data, become a trusted source for truth. And remember, there is exaggeration and hyperbole on both sides of any conversation. In a more spiritual sense, it's important for us to stay engaged in the simple things of our lives. Mirabai Starr is a mystic and a writer who talks about mysticism in our everyday lives. She writes, "Mysticism is not about concepts, it's about communion with ultimate reality. And ultimate reality is not some faraway prize we claim when we have proved ourselves worthy to perceive it. Ultimate reality blooms at the heart of our regular life. It shines through the cracks of our daily struggle and sings from the core of our deepest desires." End quote. For those who are willing to engage in ultimate reality, Unitarian Universalism may be the perfect home. Religions and churches want to impose upon us their own doctrine, their own version of truth, as it has been passed down through the generations. But highly structured organizations often act as consolidators of power. And the power of love that each of us is born with becomes the source of institutional power. By accepting all expressions of ultimate reality in our communities, we give that power back to the individual. We celebrate and nurture the power of love within each being. Harnessing the power of individuals into trusting community in the context of UU congregations becomes a delicate task. We want to validate the independence of each congregation, yet when we speak together with one voice, we become a stronger force for change, for deploying the values that bind us together. It requires convincing and inspiring voices to bring people together, and often it requires a clear and present opponent who seeks to silence these voices. It's time to speak as one. It's time for us to let the world know what it means to live as Unitarian Universalists. It's time now to celebrate the ultimate reality of our daily lives and let it shine throughout the greater community. May that ever be so.
UU Church West Split the Plate program is one of outreach and generosity. Each month, we give half of all undesignated offerings to a nonprofit organization to help us live our UU values, pursue the goal of social justice, and serve our community. Our partner for March is Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, better known as BLUE. BLUE started as a small organizing collective that formed in 2015 during the movement for Black Lives convening. They are now a thriving spiritual community and justice-minded organization creating connection for Black people. The UUA has made a $5 million commitment to BLUE, a commitment supported by thousands of congregations, such as ours, and individual donors to invest in BLUE's radical reimagining of Unitarian Universalism rooted in Black experience and wisdom. The UUA's collaboration with BLUE has continued through the End Money Bail campaigns. People have been asking, what can I do? First, inform congregants about the supports available for Black UUs. Second, support BLUE today with your donation. If you are participating virtually, please go to the UUW website Donate tab and select Split the Plate from the menu provided. Or you can text or mail your donation today using the information found here. Today, I thank you for your generosity to BLUE and to UUCW. We will now graciously accept your offering.
Please read along with our offering dedication. To the work of this community, which is to ground ourselves in love and joy, and to act for inclusion and justice, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings. Please rise in body and or spirit in song number 1021, Lean on Me.
If we are one,
First, I'd like to thank Chaplain Mark Richards for being here today. The worship ministry team, Kelly Bognar, Dave Cicero, of course, Ruben, our music director, who I'd like to thank especially for choosing my favorite jazz artist, Thelonious Monk, as your postlude. Thank you. And to Kathy White, our board rep this Sunday, for extinguishing our chalice. Our closing words are from Robin F. Gray. As we prepare to depart, we give voice to these hopes. May we know ourselves bound in community, even while we are apart. May a passion for justice burn in our lives. May we carry the light of compassion in our hearts and in our every interaction. May we be whole in our devotion to truth and always carry the lamp of peace before us.